Israel's cabinet unanimously approving a state budget more than 3 years after the government last ratified a fiscal spending package. But it faces a tough battle in a fractured parliament. Lawmakers are expected to give final approval for the budget by early November. Israeli Prime Minister Naftali Bennett and Finance Minister Avigdor Lieberman have already come under pressure from ministers and lawmakers upset at some of the planned reforms, while others seek higher funding. Here's how Prime Minister described the new budget.
After years of neglect, this morning we've brought the most daring, competitive and clean budget that gives the most assistance to the weaker sectors and that is most concerned about the future of our children in years.
And for more now, I'm joined by Professor Avi Weiss, the president of the Taub Center for Social Policy Studies in Israel. Professor, thank you so much for joining me. Now, what are some of the challenges the cabinet is going to face getting this budget passed by the government?
Well, of course, there are different issues inside of the budget that are going to strike different people differently. It's going to be a challenge to get it through the Knesset. Certainly, there will be some changes. We don't know exactly where they'll be yet, but there will certainly be some changes along the way. And the issue is that they really have to pass this budget. There hasn't been a budget in a long time, and the consequence of not passing the budget is that the government will basically break apart. So therefore, it's going to happen. And the question is, what's going to happen to the budget between now and then? But there are certainly some specific issues which are more contestable, more problematic than others are.
Well, what would be the likelihood that this would happen? And what would be the implications, if so, if they didn't pass the budget?
Oh, I think the likelihood is really small, bottom line, because I think that everybody in the government knows that they have to pass it. Everybody in the Knesset, all the members of the coalition, know that it has to pass one way or another. Because if it doesn't, we're basically back to square one, and we're going to go to another set of elections, and nobody wants that to happen. Well, nobody certainly in the coalition wants that to happen. So therefore, it's going to pass. Exactly what will pass, we're going to have to see.
Now, let's talk about the actual budget itself. What areas do you think that we're going to see the most significant reform in?
Well, the areas with the greatest reform, some of the most important reforms, one of them has to do with the agricultural sector, which is talking about allowing imports into the country of goods that until now really have been, I won't say completely banned, but certainly hampered greatly in the ability to import them into Israel. That could have a very large effect on the Israeli economy, on Israeli consumers, because you'll be paying a lot less. You know, we complain about prices being so high, and you'll be paying a lot less for agricultural goods. Of course, that affects farmers. We know that there have been already protests about this issue, and that will continue. However, it's very important to do this because you're helping all of Israelis throughout the entire country, and not just you, but you are harming the farmers. So there will be some compensation in there for the farmers that they do not get hurt. And it's much cheaper for the country and for all of us to directly subsidize, directly help those people who are harmed by the change while allowing the entire country to benefit from the change. So that's one of them. Another one is the change in the labor market with respect to increasing the retirement age of women. That's something that should have been passed many years ago. Israel is one of only 9 countries in the OECD, in the developed countries, that has a gap between the retirement age of men and the retirement age of women, and one of only 3 countries that is planning on to retain that gap, or to retain any gap at all. Not clear why that should exist. It's not clear why you wouldn't, in fact, increase the retirement age instead of to 65, up to 67 or 68, where the men are also located. But it's still something that is very welcome, very needed, in particular for women, because it gives them a much better outcome when they do retire with respect to their pension payments. The next one I would put up there would be the simplification of the regulation system. We know that it's very hard to do business in Israel. We know that Israel does not rank well in the ease of doing business. And this is something that comes from an abundance of regulation and an abundance of regulators. And easing this, making it simpler to be able to do business inside of Israel could have very large implications. I guess the final one I would mention would be the congestion tax, because that's certainly one that everybody is talking about. And I think I agree with the people who think that this is a super important thing to do because we're all waiting far too long on the roads, and this has a very, very large cost. But on the other hand, doing it at a point where you don't have a good alternative is a little bit problematic. So improving the current infrastructures, improving the bus systems, the train systems, in order to get to that point where you can do that without harming large parts of the weaker parts of the population, I think is important, but it is a very important reform to do.
Okay, now do you think that there are any areas in which the budget has fallen short, in your opinion?
Well, what I would want to see more is in investing in infrastructure and investing in education. And what I mean by that is, in particular, helping the weaker workers improve their marketable skills. In other words, give them training that is desperately needed for them to be able to move into the modern world, move into the types of jobs that are the future of the economy and not the past of the economy. I think that is super important. And infrastructures in terms of not just transportation, as I mentioned before, but quick, fast internet throughout the entire country. In particular, I'm thinking about the Arab villages up in the north of the country, or the Bedouin villages in the south that have really, really bad service with respect to internet, and their ability to really improve themselves and at the same time would cause lowering of inequality, et cetera, is really, really critical to the development of the country. So that's a place where I think more would be better. And personally, I would say even if that came at the cost of a slightly higher deficit, now this is contentious, but even if it comes at the cost of a slightly higher deficit, if the investments are being made in a way that will spark future growth, then I think it's worthwhile.
Okay, Professor Avi Weiss, President of the Taub Center for Social Policy Studies in Israel. Thank you so much for breaking that all down for us and for coming on the show.
My pleasure, Sarah.